Good afternoon and welcome back to your favorite podcast, Make It Plain. We are here once again to deliver to you, to share with you a lot of current events that are taking place, that are trending, and the relevance that they have in your life so that we can be prepared for these final events of Earth's history. My name is Jared Ryan, and joining me, we have Andrew Henriquez and we have Richard Buchanan. Now, as you can see from the title, the thumbnail even, we will be talking about how the U.S. government is buying you as its slave. We'll even go over across the waters to Europe and how they have their mark of the beast system implemented and, of course, continuing to implement it. And then we will also see how the very same people who are talking about the Antichrist are also building the system of the Antichrist. We'll also talk about Christian nationalism and how their motto is, in no ambiguous terms, we will force you as Americans to worship. Let's get right into it, gentlemen. How are you feeling today?
Well,
Great.
Let's make it plain.
All right, let's make it plain. I love it. So as we see here on the screen, the first article brings us to the Vatican over there in Europe and a man by the name of Peter Thiel.
That's right. It says MAGA billionaire Peter Thiel infuriates Vatican by claiming that the Antichrist is coming and will impose, notice, a dystopian one world government. That's from The Independent. It goes on. You can read it in your time. We just put it up on there, the screen. But the headline says, Trump allies, an ally of Trump now, right? Peter Thiel brings Antichrist lectures to Vatican's doorstep after attacking woke American Pope. He's calling out Pope Leo and the Vatican. And another article, same Independent, Trump ally, he brings the Antichrist to the Vatican's doorstep. And the Vatican is wroth, as it were, with him in the series, right? And he mentioned some things in there about the Antichrist and what the Antichrist is going to do. And of course, he's getting backlash from the Vatican.
Right. Now, it's very interesting that over the past few years, especially since 2020, we have seen certain terms have been trending. Antichrist. We've seen the mark of the beast has been trending. And even, this gentleman, Peter Thiel, he is a billionaire. He is taking it upon himself to go on tours talking about this Antichrist.
Right.
What's interesting about this one is he takes his tour about the Antichrist, his speeches, to the actual Vatican. Now, those of you who are students of Bible prophecy, who is the chief Antichrist based on the Bible after Satan? We know he is the very chief Antichrist, but after him, which agency is he working through to bring about this one world government? It's none other than the papacy.
That's right.
So again, while Peter Thiel may not be identifying the papacy based on the Bible, we know who it is. It is the papacy. And of course, why would the Vatican be thrilled with a person coming to their very city, their very territory, talking about the Antichrist?
Right.
In what universe would that exist?
Correct.
Could this also be a plot? A very deceptive plan? I believe that the papacy, the Pope of Rome, is a chief slave master of the whole world. And we all agree with that based on end time prophecies. If the papacy did not want Peter Thiel to be there and do this lecture, he would not have access.
Correct.
Do we all agree with that?
Yes, that's a true
I agree.
statement. That's true.
Third point. So why was he allowed? Fourth point. Does the papacy not know itself is the Antichrist of end time prophecies? And the fifth point is this. That means there is a deception going on. And I believe this could also be used to paint the papacy as a change entity. Think about it. What happened to Martin Luther,
Oh, yeah.
He was
the reformer?
He identified
Do you
the
see
papacy
where
as the
I'm
devil.
going with this?
He was persecuted.
And when he nailed the 95 Theses on that church door of Wittenberg, protesting against the papacy, what happened to him since? He was excommunicated,
Yep.
outlawed.
Chased down, hunted.
I mean, there was a bounty on his head, dead or alive. But of course, God protected him. So could this be, here is a so-called protest against the Antichrist. But notice, we have allowed him. So we have changed.
Right, right.
Interesting. So the as it were, the Antichrist that Thiel is talking about, it doesn't apply to us. We are the savior. That whom he's speaking about is the villain. So they can come in now with their peace and safety. I like to call it the papal propaganda. You know. So to your point, Andrew, correct.
Right. And as you take a look at these headlines, we're going to see that this is not the first time Peter Thiel has done a series of talks on the Antichrist. Just recently, not too long ago, he was actually doing the same thing. This is 2025. Palantir founder, Trump ally Peter Thiel talks Antichrist, coming totalitarian system in resurface interview. All right. Now, what's interesting about all of this, look at this headline. This is a statistic, a study that was done, and it says 1 in 3 people believe the world will end in their lifetime. Skip on down, you see the black words, 3,400 people in the U.S. and Canada. They were asked, and a third of them said they believe the world will end in their lifetime. Now, that to me is speaking volumes, because as students of Bible prophecy, as Seventh-day Adventists, how long have we been teaching the end of the world, the second coming of Christ? Pretty much from the time we understood that message, it goes back to the founding of our movement. In 1844, what were we preaching? The second coming of Jesus Christ. So we can say from the genesis of our movement, we've been preaching that. But now the world is primed to actually believe the same thing.
That's true.
And I believe that this is God providentially giving us an opportunity to evangelize. Because people's minds are now open to Antichrist, Mark of the Beast, end days, second coming, all these trending themes.
Armageddon.
Armageddon.
Right. That's true. And as you mentioned, the prophetic point of it, when you look at Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4, it mentions that, God told Daniel to seal up the book for the end, basically the end times, right? And knowledge shall be increased. Man shall run to and fro, etc. The scripture goes on. And you're actually seeing the fulfillment of that prophetic book of Daniel, how now, since the narrative of mainstream media and what people are exposed to are all biblical themes. As you mentioned, Armageddon, Mark of the Beast, Antichrist, all of these themes, these biblical themes are being brought into the public square. And the great question is, where are God's people to join these conversations, to join these discussions and give the prophetic and biblical explanation of what these terms and these phrases actually mean in light of end time prophecy?
I think that God is telling us it's time to do some tent meetings.
Hey.
It's time to do some more revival meetings, some more prophecy seminars to awaken the people to these things.
That's right. Because they're talking about it.
They are.
So who's talking back?
They are. And who has the right answers?
Correct.
Now, going back to Peter Thiel, listen to a video clip that is on the media that he was expressing his thoughts and ideas about the Antichrist.
I should not need to remind you that in the sort of quasi-mythological New Testament account, the slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and that there is we're told that there's nothing worse than Armageddon, but perhaps there is. Perhaps we should fear the Antichrist. Perhaps we should fear the one world totalitarian state more than Armageddon.
All right, there it is. We should fear the Antichrist, fear all of these things. Now, let's listen to this next clip. He's in an interview, and I like the question that was posed to Peter Thiel. Take a listen to what this interviewer asked him.
This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
Speechless.
There are all these different
scenario. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted.
Now, let me jump in here. That interviewer dropped the ball. He asked a question, and it made Peter Thiel feel uncomfortable. And he quickly said, I don't think that's what you're doing. He dropped the ball. Why soften the blow?
Right.
No.
Drive it home.
No, apply the pressure.
Right.
Let Peter answer under pressure. That was a weak interview. Number two, if Peter is not with the true Antichrist system, then if anything happens to him, we can chart the actual beginning of his demise. Because now he is indirectly exposing the Antichrist.
Right.
Next point, if he is a part of the Antichrist system, and time will tell, this could also be used as don't judge me, look somewhere else. Because again, the very system of the mark of the beast, that's what he is building.
Right. Whether knowingly or...
And he goes to the very place where the Antichrist is. So as if he's trying to deflect, redirect the attention. So when we and others, a few others, identify the mark of the beast system, identify the merchants who are also involved in the mark of the beast system, and expose the mark of the beast, the Antichrist himself at the Vatican, this so-called lecture would now redirect people's attention from the merchants, from the system, and from the Antichrist himself. Dangerous.
Correct. What I'm seeing here is kind of a juxtaposition. When you look in scripture in Matthew chapter 3, we see John the Baptist, and he was called the forerunner of Christ. It says he was to prepare the way, the paths for the Savior. So John the Baptist was a forerunner of Christ. We know that what Satan does, he is the Antichrist, the chief one, and he always does the opposite of Christ. So now could it be that Peter Thiel is being and acting as the forerunner of the Antichrist? I believe he is one. I believe there are many forerunners of the Antichrist, right? Many people who are going to lay this foundation, this system of totalitarianism, a one world government. But I believe that he is acting as a forerunner of the Antichrist.
If I were to lean on one side, I'm going to say he's with the system. You don't get to that point without being in the system. And no one wakes up tomorrow morning and say, I'm going to go to this location and do a lecture about the Antichrist. You have to receive clearance.
Correct.
Strategic.
Especially at the level of... especially at the level of influence and monies that he has. He's not just anybody.
Let's move on.
Right. Last point. One point. But I want to jump in here. Last small point here is that I agree with your point is that you feel as if he's part of the system. I also agree with that. Whether he's with the side of the Vatican or whether he's with the side of the money man, whatever side he's on. Because notice in one of the articles it said he's a Trump ally. And what is Trump? His cabinet, the Faith Office. What are they pushing?
Roman Catholicism.
They're pushing Roman Catholicism. They're pushing Sunday. They're pushing. So it's the same bird. Same entity, but two different sides. Right. So it doesn't matter which way you go. Right?
As they say, all roads
lead to Rome. Brother.
Lead to Rome. And on that point of Trump, as we see right here on the screen, Trump is actually using the system of Palantir to create a database on every American. As we just stated, who is that founder of Palantir? Peter Thiel.
Right.
It says Trump appears to be building an unprecedented spy machine that could track who? Americans. Those of you watching right now, many of you, not all, many of you Americans, track and trace. He's using Palantir system, Peter Thiel, to create this system of the Antichrist.
Right. So again, it goes right back to the point that the same system that he's, as it were, the Antichrist system that he's
protesting
against is the same system that he's building with his technology. Because what is it being used against? Americans. So you're seeing it. All roads lead to Rome, brother. I mean, how to spin it.
Here is the elephant in the room. Why is Peter Thiel doing this 4-part lecture? Is he a preacher?
No.
Is he an elder?
Nope.
Is he a missionary? Is he a Bible worker?
He's a billionaire.
So his field is tech and money. So if you were doing a 4-part lecture, do it based on what your career field is. Why is he doing things about the Bible? That's odd. It's strange. Makes sense?
Right.
And that's why we know there's ulterior motive involved here.
Right.
And that's why we have to warn the people, trust no man. Because when they're saying they want to expose Antichrist, many times they are a part of the Antichrist system, but to remove all eyes on them, they do things like this.
Right. It's true.
Notice this hearing in Congress as they're talking about the very same thing, Palantir and the system that's being built in America to track and trace Americans.
And in reality, what we're dealing with is an administration, current administration, that is trying to categorize, gather, and streamline data of Americans, give it with access by a private company. Now, let me explain a little bit, and I want to ask some questions. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard of Palantir, which is another New York Times article says that the administration, that this database would have 314 different points of data about every American. Literally every American, 300
There you have it. There you have it. Which entity did he mention? This track and trace system that is going to be used against Americans. Mention Palantir. And how many
data points? 314 on every American.
Wow.
So notice here, when Mr. Peter spoke about the Antichrist system, do you realize one thing he left out? He listed various identifying marks of the Antichrist and the Antichrist system. Peace and safety, what else? Armageddon.
Totalitarianism, one world government.
Well, wait a minute. To have a totalitarian system, you have to be able to surveil everyone. Track and trace.
Right.
What does his system do?
It's the same thing.
Come on now.
And that's why that interviewer...
Guilty as charged.
Yes. That's why the interviewer was onto something, but then he backtracked on himself.
Dropped the ball, right.
You know, because as I'm watching the interview, as I'm seeing what Palantir is doing, I'm like, yes, it does seem like you're building that system.
Right. And you saw his face change because you realized, wait a minute.
He lost some words.
In principle, that's exactly what the system is doing. You saw his facial expression.
Correct.
And anyone who's a behaviorist will say, wait a minute. Yeah, he noticed.
He got caught.
He got caught in what he was doing. Correct. Right? That's it. So you see that these men do have ulterior motives. They do.
Correct.
By their fruits you shall know them.
Right. And we're not saying that Palantir is the only system company that is building this one world government track and trace system, a system of totalitarianism. Notice what a prominent entity in the U.S. government is also doing.
Before we notice that, preacher.
All right.
And people really believe, a large class and group of people believe, when the devil comes, he would tell, hello, everybody, I'm the devil.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hello, everybody, I'm with the Antichrist system. Satan comes as an angel of light. Let that sink in. So the very ones who are part of the system won't tell you they are a part of the system.
When do they ever?
They will try to deflect, take eyes off us. So do not miss this deception here. And that's why Matthew 24, verse 3, let no man deceive you in verse 4. Continue.
I mean, just to add on that, they may not come and say, yes, I'm Satan. They'll say, I'm on your side.
Correct. And that's why Christ says it's by their fruit you know them. It's by their system you know them.
That's right.
It's by their tech company you know them. By their fruit you shall. Matthew 7.
Very clear. Very clear.
That's it.
So now we see here that the FBI, look at what they're doing. They are buying data that can be used to track people. Kash Patel says in this hearing. We're going to listen to what he's saying, but I want to read those red words first.
Yeah, it says the U.S. Supreme Court has required law enforcement agencies to obtain a warrant for getting people's location data from cell phone providers since 2018. But data brokers offer an alternative avenue by purchasing the information directly.
So then the question is, why even have the law? If there's a back door to where these companies can sell your data and they're giving it to the very people that are tracking you and tracing you. And of course, it's always for a good cause. Terrorism, security. We want you to be safe. We want to find the criminals. Yeah, but they're also monitoring you, as we saw with Palantir in that Senate hearing. They have 314 data points on every American. That includes you.
Right.
That includes us.
That's all your behaviors. Your shopping, where you go, where you live, what you do, what's your patterns, all those things they know.
Now, Palantir is a private company. The FBI is a federal government.
Yeah, they can't impose, right?
So we see the private company has your information. The U.S. government has your information, and Palantir is working with the Trump administration to build this database. They're working together.
Correct, exactly. Right.
You have no security.
So he has willingly given
Yes.
those a helping hand to the U.S. government
That's
to
right.
do that, right?
So good, I like that. So if you willingly give your information to Palantir, the government can still get it, or the government, they won't even wait for you. They're just going to buy it.
No, of course not. But here's
That means, last point, that means that you are their slave now.
Yeah.
They control you.
That's it. The U.S. government is buying you as a slave. But here's the thing now. Your data is not necessarily something that you are voluntarily giving up anyways. Because once you're on social media, you have a digital footprint. And everything that you do on social media is being tracked and traced, irregardless, right? So really and truly, we as consumers are already giving our data over by using our phones, our computers. All of those things are there. I mean, for example, if you do something if you go shopping, have you noticed sometimes that when you go on your computer, it starts to recommend things that you may have been interested in, or
that algorithm
that algorithm picked up? How do they know that? Because your credit cards, everything is already linked in this system, this digital system, right? But again, they're promoting it as something that is convenient for you, right? So you see it there.
Here's what Kash Patel said from his own mouth.
Can you commit this morning to not buying Americans' location data?
Thank you. The FBI uses all tools, Senator, thank you for the question, to do our mission. We do purchase commercially available information that's consistent with the Constitution and the laws under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, and it has led to some valuable intelligence for us to be utilized with our private and partner sectors.
There's always a reason. So they do admit they are buying your data. They are buying your data.
And that's why the push is to make sure everything is electronic.
Right, correct. Is it
a digital-only society?
And it's not only happening here in the U.S., but across the waters there in Europe, they are implementing similar things. But again, I want you to notice it always comes with convenience. It always comes with making the workflow just a little bit easier. From this article here, it says, the Commission presents proposal for EU, European Union, Inc., unlocking the full potential of the single market for Europe's entrepreneurs.
And of course, you read the headline there. We're gonna roll two clips from Ursula. She's the president of the EU Commission, I believe. And she's gonna explain exactly how the system is gonna roll out, and again, the convenience of it for businesses. If you want to set up new businesses now, notice what she says. It's very interesting how this digital framework is being set up in EU. The pendulum swings from east to west. Notice.
And so here comes EU Inc., the 28th regime. EU Inc. creates a single European company framework. It is one simple set of rules that works across our entire single market of 450 million consumers. It will make it drastically easier to start and to grow a business in Europe. Any entrepreneur will be able to create a company within 48 hours from anywhere in the European Union, fully digitalized, for less than 100 euros and without minimum share capital. And at the heart of this proposal is one simple principle that says once only. Companies will provide their information to public authority, their data, one time only. And that information will then be shared automatically between relevant administrations, from business registers to taxes to social security authorities, you just name it. And this information will be stored and easily accessible in a new EU business register for EU Inc. companies.
How many more clips you have?
There's one more.
One more clip?
One more.
Okay.
It's a part of two clips. Yeah.
Okay, roll it. Friends, don't miss the framework here. It's based on businesses, correct?
Correct.
Did she give a number? She said about 400 million, right?
450 million.
Million what? Let me make sure.
Consumers.
Consumers.
People, yeah.
Do you know how many people are in the EU? That very number.
Mercy.
So she's framing it as if it is for businesses only.
What it's for?
It's for every single person in the EU. As of 2025, approximately 450 million people live in the European Union. So it is framed as if it is just for businesses.
Right.
But it is for every single person in the EU. Continue, preacher.
Now, the second feature. At its core, EU Inc. is digital. EU Inc. companies will operate in a fully digital environment, from registration to shareholder meetings, from document storage to capital operations. It will all be supported by the new European Business Wallet. So companies will be able to manage their documents and communicate with other businesses and administrations fully digitally in all 27 member states.
Fully digital.
But notice how it's framed, though.
For the EU wallet.
Yeah.
Right? So they're creating a digital wallet, which we have seen being talked about also here in the United States as well.
Since September 30,
right.
2025.
That's right.
So they're building this framework, and all they have to do, it's like this. The EU, they get a digital framework going. Let's say the various countries in Africa, they get a digital framework. Asia, and they go to all the continents. All they have to do now, just upload it to one server, boom,
Correct.
It's all done.
Correct.
Yeah.
They are making the process one step easier by automating it, just putting it digital. Then link them all, we're here.
Right.
So there's one world religion that's coming, one world government that's coming, and a one world banking system.
That's it. That's what they're setting up. That's what she's talking about, the one world banking system, where everything is centralized in one. Notice what she says. She styles it as the core principle is once only. Share your data once.
Just once.
But isn't it only one time you need to do you need to do that in order for them to have your data points?
That's
or who?
it.
So why is it styled like that? But then she goes on to say, who's going to have that data? Tax collectors, Social Security, basically all the administration of the government, and it's going to be stored. So it's not your data anymore, right? And then, of course, she mentions the digital, what is connected to the digital wallet. So it's the currency.
Either CBDC, crypto, or stable coins.
Right. So she's promoting it as businesses, but she mentions the 450 million consumers.
Consumers. Hold on. So
citizens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Residents.
So would an infant be a consumer? Would a 3-year-old be a consumer?
Well,
it's very deceptive.
Very, very mercy.
Now, we have to understand everything has a context. Why is this being rolled out in 2026? Because remember, there was a 50 in 5.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's right.
I've been trumpeting this. 50 in 5. 50 nations in the next 5 years must all be digital.
Right.
Nothing analog. And the 5 years end in 2028. That's why you're seeing this now.
That's right.
The EU Inc. And that's why we want people to understand we don't have much more time left. So how can we set up ourselves as individuals, as a family, right? As a group of believers. So when this system grows teeth and become far more draconian and tyrannical, we can survive outside of it, because they are going to make sure there's no survival outside of this system.
Right.
Okay, just as a fish cannot survive out of water, the water is the matrix. The water is that tyrannical system. The water is that barbaric system. No survival outside of it. How can we survive out of it? That's the great question. Because just to identify and diagnose is not the full picture.
No. And that's what makes this podcast and this platform different, is we identify the problem and then we give the biblical solutions. And those of you who've been watching, you know what they are, the 5 keys of survival.
That's it.
Going off grid by the grace of God. Getting off of the main platforms that connect you to society.
Country living.
Country living.
That's it.
You know, because there we would have a place to be preserved for a time a little bit longer than those who are still connected.
Right.
But of course, first and foremost, conversion. We need to be connected to Christ.
That's it.
Because Christ is the one who preserves us.
That's right. And these systems we're seeing them roll before our eyes. So we cannot be wasting time or be naive to say, well, it doesn't affect me. It's coming. In fact, it's here.
And notice, all the other countries, even continents, are setting up the mark of the beast system. Do you realize on the surface, in the media, it's as if America is crawling as a snail?
Yeah, it does.
It may seem as if.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
You see that?
Yes.
Why is that so?
I like the statement from Sister White. It says that, she says, the Sunday movement is making its way in darkness. For this application, I'm just going to implant America there. America's mark of the beast system is making its way in darkness. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those lines, to say that just because on the surface we may not necessarily see such aggressive movements in this digital frame does not mean that the shakers and the movers don't already even have a system set up already. And then when the rest of the world, the continents, are on same level, for lack of better, they've all caught up. Now America can just flip the switch and say, now follow us.
Tell me if this relates, but I'm thinking about AI technology. In the past 5 years, but less than that, I would say, man, maybe the past 2 years, 2.5 years, the boom for AI just took off. We had been hearing about it.
Out of nowhere.
But out of nowhere, now there's all of these AI apps just all of a sudden. You know, businesses are just using it. So when I look at AI, I'm seeing how fast did it just roll out in society. And now it's very mainstream to use for business, for school, for pretty much everything.
Right.
For
So
even searching on Google.
So basically, when did they build the infrastructure?
That's the point.
Because
That's
there's
the
no
point.
way
That's the point.
you could introduce something,
Yes.
all of a sudden, it is operable globally.
Within
Globally.
months.
There's no way.
And functioning. And
There's
now
no
it's a
way.
new norm.
There's
It's a new norm.
There's no way. And what we saw when we discussed this topic on AI a few weeks back, and we discussed Claude, the program that the government used, and they said that Claude, the government had a different form, a different aspect of that same AI that's not available to the public.
Right.
So what they give the public in terms of infrastructure and AI is not what the government uses. They use a much more advanced version.
Correct.
Right? So it's not too far-fetched
Correct.
that these things that are being constructed are very much being done in darkness.
Correct. And 2028 was their deadline. It's 2026. Let that sink in. 2028 was the deadline. Everybody can Google 50 in 5. 50 nations in 5 years. The deadline was 2028. Breaking news. Today is not March 19. 2028, but 2026. That means they are at least a year and a half on schedule. Before schedule.
Right.
That means final movements will be what?
Rapid ones.
Rapid ones. So how much more rapidly should we be moving? Huh? To implement those 5 keys of survival, one of which is aggressive evangelism.
Right.
Correct.
That's right. And just to make the point clear, going back to this digital system they're setting up here in the EU, think about it. In Revelation 13, it says you won't be able to buy or sell except you receive the mark. So they're rolling this out for businesses, but the businesses will force the consumers to purchase the products and interchange money in their specified form. You know, I went to a business, and this is normal for us now. We went to a business, we go to businesses regularly, and they'll say on the sign, we no longer accept cash. Or we only accept exact cash, but we only take card. A lot of the machines at the grocery stores, card only. So once the businesses roll out their digital system, they force the consumer to get on the platform, or you can't buy or sell.
No, that's true. I mean, I went to a store just the other day. I forgot which store it was. It may have been a clothing store or something like that. And they literally said that. They said to those in the line, hey, if you don't have exact cash or card, we cannot take your payments because we're not distributing cash.
Yes.
So you have to give us exact cash because we don't have change for you.
Or
what are they saying?
You walk away without change.
Oh, you walk away without change. That's it. Because they're phasing it out. So it's happening from the grassroots, from the little small mom and pop shops, and then they're working its way up.
And this is why I know there has to be, mark my words, well, God's words, there has to be a financial Armageddon.
Yeah.
That's the only way you arrive at your reset. To get a reset, you have to shut the whole thing down. But you can't do it until everybody is on board.
Right.
Meaning all nations have the digital platform established.
Right.
When everybody is onboarded, then you crash the system, reboot. And that means if you're not in the system, on the platform, you are now a pariah.
Yeah.
You'll have to survive outside of the system. You see? And it's no different than when Nebuchadnezzar said to those 3 Hebrews, who is that God that will deliver you out of my hand? In Daniel 3. Let's flip it and apply it. How are you going to survive outside of this system? How are you going to survive outside of this system? And that is where God is going to vindicate his name. Again, my people will be able to survive outside of this system.
That's true. I mean,
we're not talking about this.
No.
We're not talking about this. No. As a community, SDA, the majority aren't talking about this. Why is that so? You mean just sleeping? They're the ones crying peace and safety.
Yeah. We think we have much more time. Yeah, that's a large part of it.
Yeah.
And so, we're talking about this implementation of a digital society, which will cause you not to be able to buy or sell except you're in that system. But we know the mark of the beast is connected to worship. Notice how the stage is being set even now, where the far right, even the Christian nationalists, we're going to see.
One quick plug, preacher. I just saw a comment in the comment section here. The point I just made, I want you all to go back to Genesis 41
Joseph.
and chapter 47. Just 2 quick chapters. In chapter 47, beginning verse 15 to about verse 22. Verse 15 through verse 22. You'll realize that there was a time when the majority of the then known world, the people were not able to survive outside of Pharaoh's system.
That's true.
They were not able to survive outside of Pharaoh's system.
Yes, true.
Only one group,
Those.
Joseph's
That's it.
family. They were able to survive outside of the system of Pharaoh.
That's right.
Outside of the system of Egypt. I wonder why. Where were they and what did they do?
And notice that was actually a one world system, we can say at the time, because before Joseph's family came to Egypt and they were preserved, they were in the lands of Canaan, the land of Canaan. And the famine came to those lands.
Right.
They had no food except they went to Egypt. So that means the other nations as well had to go to Egypt if they wanted to survive.
And notice that.
And did money fail?
I was just about to say.
Okay, go ahead.
No, take it. I was going to say money failed to the point that the people had to sell their bodies.
Correct.
Right? And we're told in Revelation chapter 18 that Babylon owns the souls of men.
Correct.
So that means in the end time, money will fail as it did in the time of Joseph.
A financial
Financial
Armageddon
collapse.
has to happen.
Yeah.
And that's how you get, because notice in verse 15, it's when the money system failed.
Then
Everybody had to survive in the system based on the system.
Right.
See that now?
Right.
So money has to fail.
right. So as we're
Has to fail.
as we're seeing the phasing out little by little
Correct.
of cash,
Correct.
the eroding of it on the grassroots section, we know what they're setting up. So if you're not a part of the system in which they're setting up, you're going to be a pauper and a slave.
And as a family, we have to get our children prepared for this. I was doing an exercise with my children, and I said to Faith, can we, if we're hungry, can we actually eat this $1 bill? Faith didn't even answer me. It was a rhetorical question. But I'm allowing her to realize that one day the fiat currency, even though you have it, it's going to be useless, not useless. We can't use it as God's people. So what we have now have to be utilized, invested
Correct.
in things that are useful so we can survive outside of the coming barbaric system.
And this system is connected to worship. Ultimately, you not being able to buy or sell is to force you to worship. And that's where we're going now as we look at the Muslim faith, Islamic faith, clashing right now with Christian nationalists here in America. Let's take a look at what's going on in New York with the mayor of New York City. Here we have anti-Muslim rhetoric rises as Zohran Mamdani embraces his Muslim faith.
Right. And we're going to fly through these because we have several clips we want to show. So we're just going to read the headlines, friends. You can pause the video and read those in your time. Mamdani celebrating Ramadan that just passed, right? Bringing in joy. He received a backlash for this from the Republican right, the far right activists, right? Next article from CBN, Islamic call to prayer blasted over loudspeakers. So they had set up speakers in New York and they were essentially chanting that we're taking over, Islam is taking over. And notice what they said, listen, we're defending our broadcast because we have a First Amendment right to religious freedom and cultural identity. And they received a backlash from this. Notice the clip here, real quickly. Right. So now the flip side of that is now notice the backlash from the far right Republicans, the Christian nationalists. Notice what they had to say in response to this promotion of Islam in New York and even regarding the mayor. This is from Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith. He actually used to work under the Trump administration. And he says the mayor of New York, Mamdani, has no right to force his values on New York. Take that in.
Because this is a Christian nation.
That's his argument.
All right.
Because America is a Christian nation, we won't tolerate the forcing or the promotion of Islam in New York.
Mercy.
That's what he said.
So now it's no longer a nation built on principles such as civil and religious liberty. No, it's a Christian nation.
Right.
So in other words, you can't share your religion,
but what?
But I can share mine because I'm a Christian.
You can't force.
Okay, you cannot force.
But what is
you can't force yours, but we can force ours.
That's right.
Exactly.
Right. That's clear.
Listen from the horse's mouth himself.
All right.
Notice what he says. This is the lieutenant.
We are a Christian nation, but we are increasingly becoming a non-Christian people. So a Christian government, a Christian value system, so the Judeo-Christian ethic, the Decalogue, Leviticus 19, Blackstone's common law was taken right from Scripture. Our founders took right from that to create this system of governance. It's all based in the Judeo-Christian ethic. So while someone like an Ilhan Omar is welcome to be here legally, that does not mean she has a right to change the foundations of this nation that the Supreme Court just ruled in the Kennedy case that long-standing historical tradition is the constitutional precedent. So what's the long-standing historical tradition in America? It's Christian values. It was not rooted in Islam. It was not rooted in socialism, Marxism. It was rooted in Christian, Judeo-Christian ethic and capitalism. And so when a socialist Marxist like Mandami tries to force his values onto New York, I would say, no, you're not welcome to do that, because the longstanding historical tradition is constitutional. What you're bringing is something new. You're trying to remove the foundation.
Force. And he said force. You can't force Islam on Americans. You can't.
Right. And when you go back, because we're about to see it very clearly, but when you go back to the founding fathers of the United States of America, even the first pilgrims that came here, what did they do? They actually forced those who were not members of the church and didn't attend church. They couldn't do certain things in society. You had to be a church member. You also had to be, adhering to the faith that they were promoting in order to do various things in society.
But I mean, if you look at it from a historical standpoint, when you look at the founding of America and the pilgrims in what they were fleeing from the old world, they were fleeing forced worship from the Vatican, from Rome, right? So the very same rhetoric or very same actions that Rome took in the old world, we're seeing the Christian right now mimicking what they ran away from.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a change happening in America. Protestant America taking on the prerogative of Romanism by wanting to force the conscience. So just as we looked at it from a digital aspect, right? How the digital system is being set up, we're looking at it now from a worship, spiritual aspect. It's as if we're being surrounded.
Correct.
We're being surrounded. But what is God's encouragement to us? What is God's objective for us? Since we're being surrounded, God says, listen, you must flee the cities. Flee the cities. There's a time coming when you won't be able to. We're being surrounded. The 5 keys.
Here we have William Wolfe admits Christian nationalists are going to impose our morality upon you. He said that. We will impose. In other words, we will force. Listen.
We should not blink, we should not hesitate to tell people, not because we are so wise, not because we made the rules of the world, we didn't. We humbly submit to how God made the rules of the world, and we say, this is how we should order our lives together. And frankly, yes, we are going to impose it upon you. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but this is good and right and just if it lines up with God's standards. And I am going to enforce my morality on you in as much as our morality is God's morality. And you should always check yourselves. Again, I'm not trying to puff you up. Check yourself. Do I believe what God believes? Am I defending what God says is good? And if it is, then you should have the courage to say, this is how we're going to run our town. This is how we're going to run our county. This is how we're going to run our state, and this is how we should run the United States of America by legislating the morality that we can find in the Bible.
Mercy.
Me personally, I look at the end goal of end time prophecies. It's going to be the mark of the beast. And once my eyes are laser focused on that end goal, I look at the events through those double lenses. What's coming? And I believe that what Mayor Mamdani is actually doing, he's playing his role in the Hegelian dialectic. Go back and watch the video clip. He had Muslims actually doing the Muslim way of worship. Right. Where? At City Hall? There was a video clip where they had the Muslim call to worship.
Correct. Yes. Yes, they did.
The long horns sounding.
Yeah, through the speakers and
as if we're in Mecca, as they would say, or in Cairo, Egypt.
Or the mosque. Right? Yeah.
Or at the actual mosque.
Yeah. Yeah.
Notice now, what is that going to do? Is that not going to agitate and stir up
Of
course. The right?
Especially now with the war going on with Iran.
Correct.
Right.
So I believe indirectly or directly, Mamdani is actually playing his part in the Hegelian dialectic, because now you're already seeing the right respond.
Right.
We don't want that. And to combat that, we must be more forceful
Aggressive.
and more aggressive
Correct.
in forcing you to worship based on our way, Christianity, Sunday worship.
Do you know what? Remember what J.D. Vance said a few years back
Ruthless.
before he became vice president? He said we have to be very ruthless with the exercise of power. So he's on the religious right. They want to, and he said multiple times, this is a Christian nation. We need to get back to all those Christian values. They're trumpeting the same thing. And this goes right back to Revelation 13. Notice this. You've read this before, but listen to it again now that we've played these current events. Verse 12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth. That's force. Causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. The end goal of the digital society, the end goal of promoting Christian nationalism, is to force you to worship. And you know what the end goal of that is? John 16, verse 2. The time cometh when those that killeth you thinketh they doeth
God's service.
God's service.
We're seeing the fulfillment of end time prophecy. It's coming, right?
Right.
I mean, we're told that in the last days that Islam would be one of the elite, would be one of the nations that would be warring. Religions will be warring, because his hand shall be against every other man's hand, and vice versa. So it's not happenstance where we're seeing Islam in the public square warring against Christianity. So again, further confirming for us that the Bible is true and that we can trust it. So if the Bible is true on that point, then when God says, listen, it's time for my people to get ready, implement those 5 keys, then we can follow and know for sure that God will make a way for us if we obey his word, right? Because at the end of the day, we can talk about current events from now until thy kingdom come, but are we being prepared? Are we getting ready? Are we getting our families ready? As you spoke about speaking about these things with your children.
Correct.
Right? Because in some households, parents are getting ready, but children are not getting ready.
Mentally.
Spouse is getting ready, but family is not getting ready.
Correct.
Right? So the importance of that is so very needed today for us.
And remember Lot's wife.
Exactly.
Remember not only Lot's wife, remember Lot's children.
His children.
You see, when Luke says remember Lot's wife, Luke is hoping you go beyond just that one person. Remember Lot's wife? To remember Lot's wife, you must remember Lot. And to remember Lot, you must remember Lot's children.
Correct.
And the house was divided.
And when now the destruction came, what happened to those children?
Correct. 2 were lost.
2 were lost.
And as you are emphasizing the work of preparation, I remember a few moments back having a conversation with several elders and pastors on a conference line. And I was of the persuasion that you all should be warning your flock. You know, people call me, now and then, pastor, share this with me, this keynote to go preach. Go preach. And I'm saying, warn your flock. And the elders were saying, the pastor of my church doesn't want me to share these things about current events fulfilling end time prophecies. And then talk about preparation, the 5 keys of survival. I said, why? Because he said to me that if we were to share these things, number 1, the members will become scared. And if you talk about country living, the members are going to move away from this vicinity. And we won't have enough people in the local building. Mercy. And that means tithe and offerings
Right. Of course.
will decrease.
Correct.
Can you imagine that? So the pastor is more concerned about his pocket, how he looks in the eyes of the conference. What next promotion is he going to get? How many people come to the actual building than preparing his flock to meet what is coming? That is not only absurd, it's a crime against God.
Yeah. It is.
It's putting the temporal above the eternal.
And that's why they won't preach it. And of course, in some other sense, they don't know it.
That's true.
Because there's no way, if you believe these things, and you yourself as a pastor is getting ready, but you don't want this to be shared to your members, you are a wolf.
You're a wolf in wolf clothing.
You see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
It's
You
clear.
are a hireling.
It's clear. It is clear.
Now, secondly, if you're not sharing it, it's a possibility you don't believe,
it.
or you don't know it. There's no way you can know this and see the urgency of the times and not have a burden for your own salvation, right? And the general law is love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and your
Neighbor as yourself.
Yourself.
your neighbor as your self.
Right.
So if I'm getting ready, I want my flock
To get
to
ready.
get ready.
That makes that's perfect sense. Mercy.
The first impulse of a converted heart is to lead a soul to the Savior.
Correct.
So that goes for a regular lay member or even the pastor. So if you're not being truly converted, then you're not going to share the truth with people.
And that's why they don't invite us to their platforms
No.
or even churches or their meetings.
Because the messages that would be
The light.
proclaimed would
bright.
awaken
The light.
the sleeping church.
The light.
And they would be alert to the times in which they're living and make preparations. And maybe even leave those churches.
Because think about John the Baptist. Why were they so adamant, gung-ho, to shut down John the Baptist?
Because of the multitude.
The influence, the message,
That's it.
the rebuking of sin.
And where was John living?
He was in the wilderness.
Yes.
A voice crying in the wilderness.
Have you ever wondered? Oh, let me not say that. Have you ever wondered where John was living?
I would say maybe.
So even in his lifestyle, you see the 5 keys of survival. You see it?
You do. You do. You do.
You see it? Because John was in the wilderness, preparing the first advent of Christ. In John, health, storing up. In John's ministry, you find the 5 keys of survival.
You do. And as he was faithful to God, God was faithful to him. Because you look at those 5 keys, conversion. We know that John was converted, right? Country, he was in the wilderness, right? Food, resources. Where'd he get those from?
Correct.
Either
The land.
supernaturally by God, or people even donated.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Food, water, clothes. Where is he getting these things? And of course, was he not evangelizing?
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, people may say, what are you talking about? How do I see that in John's life? You see it. You see it. So as we're faithful to God and step forward in obedience to God's word, God is going to open up doors supernaturally for us. But many are so fearful. Many are so fearful. So that's why we need faith, friends. We need faith.
Amen, amen. We need that faith that can move mountains. And it begins as small as a mustard seed. So take the first step today in prayer, in personal effort, and God will continue to bless and multiply that seed so that you can be prepared for these last days and get others prepared. Thank you so much again for joining this podcast, Make It Plain. We hope that it was plain for you today. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you on the next episode. God bless.